The timeline of our current predicament really begins in earnest in 2001. In July of 2001, when whatever elements of our controlling elites here decided that they would bring the young George Bush out of hiding since he won the presidency, kind of had him in a state of dormancy. But they would bring him out of hiding to go and shake hands with Ariel Sharon in July of 2001. And there would be a picture taken, and that picture would go out all over the world. George Bush shaking hands with Ariel Sharon. At the same time, conflicts and problems were happening along the Afghanistan border with Russia. There was a big Russian troop deployment to the border in July of 2001. Also, the operation that would eventually have two terrorists, or a few terrorists, I'm sorry, flying some airplanes into buildings in New York, that was underway. That was happening. And I believe at least a couple elements of our CIA here in the United States also were monitoring the people that were taking flight lessons, the men in San Diego. That was all underway, July 2001, and also some nefarious plans, what would go down. That was all underway in July of 2001. And of course, what came next was September 11, 2001, and the response to that. And the response to that was ready. The Patriot Act was ready to go. The plans for total information awareness had already been kind of drafted up. The little working group of Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, and Wolfowitz, and all of them, they were all formed. They were all ready already. And Victoria Nuland. The project for a new American century, which calls for kind of a lot of regime changes and to control resources and to project power, kind of a unilateral power going into the next century. This was all happening, all underway. July and September 2001, October 2001, in response to the attacks, the Americans are bombing in Afghanistan and using psychological warfare, radio, leaflets, and bomblets, little bomblets that contain food, bomblets that are actually cluster bombs. They use the mother of all bombs, all this stuff. This all gets underway October 2001. Hardly anybody noticed. This, of course, leads to the deep state in America decides to blame Saddam Hussein for 2001, even though he had nothing to do with it. And the whole psychological operation known as the weapons of mass destruction, they try that. They roll that out on the American people. And it's horrible. People fall for it. By March of 2003, the United States is the war on terror. It's gone crazy. It's a new level. It's an attack on Iraq, invasion, bombing campaigns, bombing people had nothing to do with 911. And this really, this campaign in Iraq sets a whole new horrible precedent um, in our predicament. The next phase in our predicament: torture abroad, learned helplessness, John Brennan, and psychological operation of fear. The war on terror is sold at home. The rollback of rights, the idea that you need to be under surveillance, all this is all happening in 2004. And what happens in Fallujah in 2004, when it all goes wrong and we're now in perma war with irregular forces all over the world, Shias and Muslims. I mean, Shias and Sunnis, doesn't matter. We're just war. Everyone hates us at that point. And we're using white phosphorus on people and horrible. Um, some people in Fallujah were so mad at the defense contractors of the Americans that they hung some of them from a bridge going into Fallujah. So it's on 2004. Global war on terror takes on its ugly face. Torture, Guantanamo Bay, Abu Ghraib, and all that, all those ugly things. That's all underway, and it never really stops. The CIA, the ugly, gross face of the CIA is just out for all to see. It's taking on new morphings, and there's no peace movement really in America. There's no real movement that even understands yet what is happening. And that's the beginning. Now then, I'm going to connect this to something that happens in 2010. In 2010, you have this guy, Celera Genomics, and genetic engineering and genomics and all this stuff is underway. Lots of research, lots of stuff going on, research grants. But basically, the idea is of creating revenue models and weaponizing medicine. This doesn't seem related, but it kind of is. And it will be later. The idea is that you don't want to have cures anymore. People are already writing articles, investment groups, and like I said, Celera Genomics and Moderna, and people affiliated with some of these new emergent companies, biopharmaceuticals. What they're working on are things that can't be cured, but that need vaccines and remedies and stuff. And they're working on genetically modifying things to make them more transmissible, more virulent. They're already working on all this. 2010, Celera Genomics. This guy claims he can gain up a virus from his computer using genetic engineering. And and also, they are openly writing in periodicals about getting rid of cures, not having cures. That having a cure for hepatitis C would actually ruin some of their recurring revenue models. The idea of having recurring revenue from the same pathogens, same problems. Society would just be presented with this problem that can't really be solved, and that someone like Pfizer would have an answer for it, but you would need to keep coming to them. This idea is already well underway in 2010. Lots of the research money that the Faucis and the Ralph Barricks and so forth would end up using to eventually create COVID is all already happening in 2010. All right. So then we're going to fast forward to another date really soon, and that date is going to be
2016, the blocking of Bernie in the primary, the Democratic primary of 2016, the Bernie block, and the psychological operation against Bernie supporters, the co-optation of the response to the financial crash of 2008, 2009, Barack Obama's failure to do anything for the people, and his total capitulation to the bankers after the crash of 2008, 2009. Okay, Barack Obama just bends the knee, just totally bends over. For the bankers, it's obvious for everyone to see. There's the Arab Spring type situation that gets underway. And we have Occupy, which Barack Obama deploys all the agencies of the government to put down while saying that he didn't do that. But basically, Occupy and the squelching of Occupy, the breaking down, the bailout of the banks, they got bailed out, we got sold out. All that happens, and 2011-ish, that's all going on. And by the time, like I said, we get to 2016, the Democratic machine, the DNC, is completely captured by the deep state and the financial entities, and they run this Bernie block, and it's the end of Occupy. It's the end of the Bernie movement, and it's the beginning of a new era that all is cemented, locked in place. 2016. The Democratic Party is no longer going to be straight with you. They're going to begin doing things like identity politics, gaslighting, ramping up, if saying you're crazy, if you question what they have going on. And what they have going on are fear and campaigns for total control through things like psychological operations that just continue one after the other. Russiagate. Russiagate begins in 2016. So this idea that you're helpless, kind of, and there's just these elements you can't see. There's massive hidden elements manipulating your democracy. There's nothing you can really do about it, you know. Vote for a different deep state savior because things are crazy. We're post Arab Spring and post Occupy. The people didn't get anything. Bernie was blocked, and the deep state installed Hillary and as a Secretary of Defense. Obama, compliant Obama, and they just went along with the CIA and their plans to control everything, which is what really got underway. And then, yeah, like I said, in 2016, when Hillary lost to Trump, and that was blamed on the Russians, Russiagate got underway. That psychological operation. Once the deep state had done that to the American people, and they had all the smart people in America saying, I don't know, I think Hillary lost because Bernie Bros and Russians and stuff. Then they were emboldened, and they realized they could do more. And pretty much our democracy is pretty much over at that point. 2016 psychological operation known as Russiagate pretty much marks the end of constitutional America. The fact that people fell for that. And then next up, what's next? COVID. The response to COVID. A lot of these things come together. Things that were set in place in 2010, things that were set in place with the Patriot Act. This all comes into high gear in the response to COVID and the conformity culture and the total control of the media. convincing everyone that they didn't have natural immunity to viruses, that if they got exposed to the virus and beat the virus themselves, that they still somehow didn't have immunity, that they still needed other things. They still needed the deep state to give them the next booster, the next thing to keep them safe. Antibodies don't work. Ivermectin is just a horse paste. Things that humans have been already using to heal themselves are now vilified. There are no early treatments. You are helpless. Learned helplessness kicks into high gear, and everyone falls for it. People that don't fall for it are called crazy. Maybe they listen to a Joe Rogan podcast. Maybe something went wrong with their mind. They haven't just embraced this idea that they just have to bend over and accept whatever Pfizer shoves their way. The total control of the media through the NPR and other aspects of Pfizer underwriting and owning everything. So the psychological operations, the total control, the lockdown, the lack of ability to do anything for yourself, the total state of learned helplessness. This is all made into like a perfect formula, a perfect, you know, way to control you. COVID-19. And it's like I said, it's the culmination of the Patriot Act. It's the culmination of lots of things. Was the response to COVID when you see it that way? Global control. Next up, you know, racism, domestic terror. We don't have elections anymore. If our candidate loses, it's racism, and it's white supremacy. So now we're just kind of disempowered. We can't do anything with our normal political process. Doesn't work. It produces results like Kamala Harris, cackling Kamala Harris, incompetent Biden, and swaggering Trump, and all these distracto clowns. It's pretty much the end of democracy. There's no real debates or issues being discussed. It's all personality politics, cult of personality. At this point, we've been so beat up, so slapped around by psychological operations that we're accepting this cult of personality. And my guy's good, Biden's good, I love Kamala, joy, Kamala. And the deep state is actually engaged in a genocide. It's actually doing a genocide in Palestine with the full support of the Team Biden, Kamala. And most of your liberal friends love them because they're a person of color and they're totally immersed in identity politics and duped out of their minds. They're no longer even engaged in anything involving real power. They can't even see Raytheon or West Exec or any of the real defense contractors. Anything that's really going on, they can no longer see it. Psychological operations have just been hit them so hard. And they're now completely embracing this fake liberation, this fake identity politics, LGBTQ, this focus on hyper individuality and sexuality and liberation. I'm liberating my genitals, brother. I've always been a female and I've done it, and now I can just be whatever I want and all this. Yay! All these things, which seems cool. But unfortunately, the deep state, they don't care. People that are conducting war and murder all across the globe, they don't care about any of this stuff. And they're glad we're focused on it. So there's this weird identity politics, divided America, divided, distracted America, and the global war continues. And the takeover, the digitalization, the financialization of everything, the commodification of the planet continues. Fortunately, within this, though, there is a sort of native revival going on. And that's where the chance for humanity lies in returning to some of the old ways, valuing your family, valuing your connection to locality, valuing some of these things against the deep state. It's the only way. Some people get it, they're seeing it, and they're fighting back, and many people do not. And we'll see what happens. A lot hangs in the balance.